And also, like, I had no contact with my parents. They would read the letters. So whatever I'd be saying, if they didn't agree with it, you would get punished. And then on top of it, your parents really had no idea what was going on because you had to write, the right, correct things for them to think.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's gnarly.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, everybody. We're here with Shay today. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for being here.
Of course.
I'm so stoked right now because you're the first guest to experience the pink lighting.
And I love it.
I love it.
It's great.
Woman's power.
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. So you have quite the story in recovery. And a lot of people know who you are. You've been a figure out there in the recovery community, loved by many. I've known who you are for a very long time, but I've never actually sat down with you. So I'm so happy you're here and that I'm going to be able to hear your story for the first time. So you've been sober now for how long?
8 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be 9 years in April.
In April.
5th.
Okay, I'm 7 years. I'll be 8 years in August. So
That's
we're
how
close.
I get sometimes. I'm like, well, wait,
wait.
so much time has gone by. I'm like, how many years is it now?
It's funny that you said that because a couple weeks ago, I posted and I said something about I have 8 years sober. And then I went back. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
What are you doing, dude? You still have another year before you get there. But yeah, it gets kind of confusing over time, whatever. So are you from here originally?
Yes. So I was born in New York. My dad was playing for the Rangers back then, but I grew up in Laguna Beach.
Okay, nice. So he's playing for the Rangers, and you were saying off camera that he's from
French
Canada?
Canadian.
Okay.
French Canadian.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and then he's played hockey since he was about 18 years old.
Okay.
Or even younger.
Wow.
I mean, professionally.
That's really cool. I'm from Canada, as most people know. So I was raised with hockey. When I came out here, I was 19 and I didn't really know the culture and stuff out here. And everyone's watching football. And I'm like, this is really strange. People didn't really do that in Canada. It was all about hockey. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I actually haven't even gone to a hockey game out here. I don't know why, but I need to go.
I know. I haven't been in a very long time.
Yeah.
I think when I was young.
Yeah.
Kings.
Yeah. I need
He played
to go
for
to a
the
game.
Kings too.
Okay. So is he retired now or?
Yeah.
Okay.
He
And
was
is your mom and dad still together or?
No. So my mom and dad divorced when I was actually very young.
Okay.
And they both remarried. And so my stepdad, Rick, he, still lives in Laguna. And so he also raised me.
Nice.
Yeah.
So how was your childhood?
It was good. I mean, I had a very blessed childhood. I grew up in 3 Arch. My parents were great. I mean, I think things escalated when I just started hanging out with certain crowds, and then certain things came with that. I was always someone who naturally liked to have fun and go out. So my addiction didn't really necessarily start with one traumatic thing.
Okay.
It was more just I was a free spirit and wanted to go out and have fun. And then I think while doing that, some things happened, and then I didn't know how to cope with it. And so just hanging out with the wrong people, and I started getting into some criminal behavior at a very young age. And that was really just because I liked the feeling of I don't know, being wild, I guess.
How young were you?
So when I was 15, the cops came to the house. I got in trouble for stealing a Hummer.
Oh, wow. At 15.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just, thought it was fun, and it was someone we knew, and he was also this bad guy. So for me, it was let's see who's worse, type thing. And so me and my friend, mainly me, but I took the Hummer, and then cops came to the house at I don't know, 3 o'clock in the morning looking for it. And I'm and I was already gone by then. And my parents are just are you kidding me? And there was a bunch of things, just with school and just stuff. I was getting in trouble. I remember I was at Doheny days, and I came home and I just kept laughing because I was, smoking weed and stuff. And my parents were we're going to take the door off, like we need, what is going on? So it just like started with little things. And then I went through some sexual stuff. Like I said, I think just like hanging out with the wrong crowd, it brought some other people along.
Yeah.
And I didn't really know how to cope with that, and communication, like with my mom, or at least on my end, it was hard for me to, I wouldn't necessarily say it was just them, but I didn't know how to like express myself at such a young age. So I started, acting out. And that's when I started hanging out with kids with the same interest. And so then from there, my parents didn't really know what to do.
Because you didn't come from like an alcoholic family or anything.
No.
Okay.
I mean, my grandpa, he struggled, with addiction, and he actually died when I was very young from Alzheimer's, and I was very close with them. So that was really hard. But he had alcohol issues and cocaine. That was like his thing. But I wouldn't say, like, I was around it a little bit, but it wasn't to where it was like in my household and affecting me. You know what I mean? So, I think I was so similar to him though, so my mom just like always was a little concerned. Like she has the same behaviors, same personality.
She could see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, my parents definitely like drank in the house. They had fun, but it was nothing that like took over their life. I mean, my stepdad is a successful doctor, and my mom was present, but I think just far as like communication of what I was going through and stuff, like that was hard because I didn't really express anything.
Yeah.
So then my parents at that point, because I was struggling in school, just with little things like getting caught drinking and, at 14, 15 years old. So back then it kind of became like a popular thing to send your kids away. Because I mean, and I only say that because I know a group of people that I knew that were also sent away.
Yeah.
So I was sent to this place called Trinity Teen Solution in Wyoming, and I was there for about 2 years.
Wow, 2 years.
Yeah.
So what was that like going there? Were you pissed off? Like what was...
It was horrible. I mean, I was dropped off there in a private jet. So imagine the difference of going there, having this life of, spoiled and then going there and you don't get a bed, you don't get a restroom to pee in. It's like you use a bucket, like you lose everything. And they control everything. So, and it took me a year because they just had a thing with me. Because I am a harder personality, and I will, but it was just like, I don't know. It was like this weird, I didn't get a cot for like a year. I slept on the floor.
Wow.
So, and then we did like a lot of, so it was a ranch. So there's like horses, pigs, everything like that. And so we worked it. Like, it was like we worked the fields, we built everything around it. It was just like a completely different life growing up on the beach and then going to this wilderness place. And, just that every day it was just crazy, just hard labor work and the emotional stuff. I mean, you would get punished. I remember I had to wear like some shirt. I forgot like what. I have pictures of everything, and it was just like something about like pride, and they would just like try to break you down. And in their sense, it was like, oh, we're gonna get through, and they're gonna do better because of this.
That old mentality for sure.
Yeah. And we'd have to run like miles in the snow, and Jesus. I mean, they just got shut down.
Wow.
Because they have a huge civil case going on. So that that was a lot. And also like I had no contact with my parents. They would read the letters. So whatever I'd be saying, if they didn't agree with it, you would get punished. And then on top of it, your parents really had no idea what was going on because you had to write, the right, correct things for them to think.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's gnarly.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you, and it sounds weird even saying it, but did you feel like you like learned anything like from the experience when you came back? Or
Well, I feel like the only thing that I learned was that jail wasn't that bad. Once I ended up going there when my addiction got worse, like it didn't scare me because of what I went through at
that was
Trinity.
Much worse. Yeah. Wow.
So, which is sad to think about. I mean, there are things as far as just working on a ranch and stuff like that, like I could go in the wilderness and probably be completely fine, because we would go on
You're
these
a survivor.
we would go on these hikes, and you would get like, you would have to find your kindling, and you get one match, and if you don't figure it out, then you don't get a fight. I mean, things like that.
You could do like all those reality shows they have out now. Like you would win all of them.
I'd be fine. I'd be fine and have a smile. Just figure it out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there were things that you felt, okay, this is so different. And I don't know, I feel like you mentally, because you're surviving, you're like, oh, maybe this is normal. I mean, I was so young, I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
And then just being away from my family, like that itself was a lot, just not having my family anymore. I mean, I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I could never imagine, her being away from us and stuff. So then when I came back, I came back worse.
Yeah. Like how was that transition? So you're like here, Beachtown, then you're gone. You're at this place for 2 years and you come back. Like, what was that like?
So basically also I started this inappropriate relationship with a staff member, kind of like survival, to know when I was coming home. And that was another thing, because obviously she was much older. And that was like, for me, it was, I needed information because it started getting bad. So I knew I was going to be going home on a visit. So I kind of just planned, but at that time I was 18. So they actually wanted me to come back. So I was like, nope, I'm not coming back. This is horrible. And I was just drained. It was I ended up getting in trouble. I remember one of my lambs died, and they got so mad at me because they like put them in the animal pit, and they get eaten by whatever animals out there. And like for so long, they were trying to teach me how to correctly have these like emotions and stuff like that. And then when I would show my emotion, I was, punished for that.
Wow.
So I remember that so vividly, because that was like towards the end, and I knew I was coming back on a visit. And then I was like, once I came back, I was like, nope, I'm 18. I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And so once I came back, I didn't go to like doing drugs right away or anything like that. I was just drinking, like here and there. And then,
you get your old friends back and all that.
Yeah. So I was hanging out with like, a lot of my old friends, and there were some of my friends that had been through everything with me since high school, and they were actually really good friends, and and I'm still friends with them. They've really just been through it all with me. And, they would tell me how they felt and voice their opinion and try to help guide me. But it was just like, I don't know, within time, I just started again getting in relationships that weren't healthy. They were just like emotionally abusive, like, or cheating, or just like everything that came with those type of relationships. And that's when I started, I got my first DUI.
Did you think that you actually had a problem, or you're just like young and having fun? And
no, I think I knew, but I also felt like I justified that. Like, I'm young, I'll figure it out. This is normal.
Yeah.
And so I would get in trouble for like little things here and there. And then I think it was maybe, I don't know if my first DUI I had to go to treatment. Maybe I did. I don't think the first one I did. I think it was the second one. But then I got in trouble for drug sales and transportation. And that's when I had to go. I was like looking at more time, and I did have to do 6 months and then go to treatment. And even then it was just like, I just justified my stuff, or I would feel like, well, I also had a bunch of injuries, and some of those injuries came from even Wyoming. Like I played volleyball when I was young. So I had like back injuries, and sorry, I'm kind of like jumping around.
No, you're fine.
But, so I was prescribed like Oxycontin, Opanas, Somas, Adderall, everything you can think of, I was prescribed. So that was a huge justification for me, because I'm like, well, I'm not doing hard drugs. I'm doing what's prescribed.
That's what I would say too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that was a whole like huge time period for me.
Yeah.
And I constantly, and then Klonopin, because I had really bad anxiety. That started way before I went to Wyoming. I like would hyperventilate, pass out, not really know where it's coming from. The doctors thought I possibly had like asthma even, because it was just like,
Oh, wow.
and then I was prescribed Klonopin, you know, because they kind of were like, no, this seems like panic attacks, you know?
That's interesting. Our stories are very similar because it wasn't that for me, but it was Xanax, just like straight Xanax.
Yeah.
But at a very young age like that for like gnarly panic attacks and then all prescribed.
Yeah.
So I totally understand what you're saying. Because then you're in that mindset of like, well, the doctors are prescribing this for me.
100%.
Come on.
And so that's where there was such a struggle, because I wasn't just doing like cocaine and all that. That was more just like once in a while partying, you know? And so around that time I was in, you know, a relationship off and on with, you know, London's dad, and our relationship had a lot of partying, and same, we both had injuries. We're both taking a bunch of pain meds. So from there, the relationship didn't get any better. It just became like more and more toxic. So I think the drugs just got worse and worse, because I had no way of knowing how to cope with anything. And I was in and out of rehab. You know,
This is in your 20s? And
yes. And I probably like 7 different treatment centers.
Oh, wow.
And then I've OD'd 13 times, hospitalized, and
Off of the prescribed medications, or were
no,
you doing?
that was when. So I started doing heroin, but that was because I would run out of my medications, and so then that was when I started jumping around and just doing what, you know, I could do to get it. So
And you overdosed how many times?
13.
13 times. Wow.
Yeah. My mom was there even for a few and that's why, and it's so sad because you don't remember, you know, so everyone else like around you goes through this traumatic thing, and then it's like, you're just waking up, you know, and you just have no recollection of what happened. And that, I think, is what is so sad. And in my recovery, I was able to really feel that, of all the things that I put people through, and not necessarily in like a negative thing. Like, I think it's good to like open your eyes to, you know, what you've put other people through and who has stood by you and loved you. And because it really is crazy when you're deep in your addiction, you just don't see that. You
don't see it. We're so selfish in our addiction.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
that was like through your 20s. You went to many different treatment centers, and would you just like leave, or I mean, would you complete programs and like get a little bit of time, or?
Yeah, I would get a little bit of time, and then I would kind of go back to like the justification again of like, oh, I'm prescribed these, or I'm fine now, or if I just drink alcohol, you know, and I don't do hard drugs, but it only lasted so long.
Yeah.
And so then like in my early 20s, I had my daughter London, and I felt like pretty, like everything was not that bad, you know, because I mean, obviously I had my daughter, I was still taking some medication, but nothing like crazy.
Yeah.
And then her dad at the time was just getting into UFC. And so we were traveling a lot, and still like, I feel like when he was in that profession, it was, you know, you go to parties, you do this, you do that. But I still felt, because I would come home and I would be okay. It wasn't like out of control, but I was definitely dependent. Like I had to still take something to be okay, which obviously that isn't good. But in my mind, I felt like I wasn't just taking stuff and passing out. You know what I mean? But then, you know, that relationship still, it was not a healthy one. So we would go through like times where we would be fine and then break up, and then we were fine. And since we didn't have like a healthy foundation, it always ended poorly, you know? And then that was kind of what happened. And when we were separating, you know, he was kind of using his platform to break me down. And I don't say that to poor me victim mentality. I don't. But that is the reality of it. There was so much hate and stuff built up. And it's not like I was speaking highly of him either, you know, but it, you know, it was a lot to go through mentally. And then, you know, he would at times use my daughter as a pawn, and that was what was killing me, because I, you know, she's my baby. Like, and so when there's a kid involved and you already emotionally don't know how to really cope with anything, and you don't have your kid, and then it becomes this like unhealthy game, you know? And so we were in court all the time, you know, emergency orders all the time, back and forth. It was just like this huge war. And then I would not do any substances when I had her. And then when I didn't, I would. It was just like, I didn't know how to, because that, even then, that wasn't like who I wanted to be. I wasn't going to just like, do these drugs and I don't know. But but it got really, really bad. And then I just kind of lost my mind. And because I kept ODing, I switched from heroin to meth. Oof. And so I was shooting that up and I literally lost my mind. Like I was like seeing things, I was hearing, I would like be staring out the window thinking, and then I eventually did lose my daughter. And I mean, to this day, it's just, I'll just never like forget the feeling of that. And I ended up actually ODing when she was sleeping. And my boyfriend at the time was there, and he actually died when I was in custody. But so he called the ambulance and they came, and that like for the longest time was so hard for me to like talk about. Because like I never thought I would be that person. And it was like, oh, I was just doing a little bit, just she's sleeping. Like what, you know what I mean? She's not going to know. It's not like I'm doing this when she's, awake and I'm playing with her and stuff like that. The justifications you do are just insane.
Yeah. I actually did the same thing with my son. He's 15 now, but when he was like 3 or 4, he was sleeping and I overdosed. Yeah. And my ex-husband found me, and it was like I could never, I mean, I've worked on it now, but it took so long, to like move past that because we don't see ourselves like that when we're in it. It's like we're like these two different people. And,
100%.
So I can totally relate.
And it was just like I couldn't really talk about it or even say it out loud for a long time. Like I knew what happened. I knew why I completely like lost custody of her. Yeah. But I couldn't come to terms with that I was like, that was me, And so then so after that happened, I really lost it. Like I was just hanging out with really bad people, And well, actually a lot of them I love, but we were all struggling with addiction, and just involved in really bad stuff. So I ended up stealing another car and I was just so out of my mind. I like didn't think anything of it. Like I thought I Sharpied a white piece of paper as the license plate. Like I was so just like, I mean, hello. Yeah. I went to Walmart with, my ex who died and just like shopping, like just completely out of my mind. Like not even
You're not
here.
there. Yeah.
No. And so all these cops end up showing up at Walmart in Aliso Viejo, like totally take me down, probably like 15 of them. And I'm just like, I'm still just, I don't know, I'm probably 85 pounds, black hair, like pigtails. I mean, look ratchet.
That's so crazy. Like just to stop for a second, because like you're so beautiful and like put together, and like this mom and wife and it just shows like how far we can come, because when we like talk about these stories, it's like, we're not attached to it anymore. It's like, we're looking down on like this other life. Yes. You know what I mean? Like to think about you like that. For me, in my head, I'm like, whoa, like I can't even
No, it's literally like an out of body experience. When I go back and I post about my recovery, I'm like, okay, I want to be raw. I want people to be able to like see what I went through, see who I was, and see that there's hope. Yeah. Like, dude, like there really is. And so, but sometimes I'm like, do I want to post this? This is pretty bad.
Yeah, I've done that too. And I'm sure people with you, they're like, oh, so were you like a wine drinker or something?
I'm like, no, I was shooting up like bad. But,
so you went to jail for that, I take it?
So I went to jail and I was, looking at a lot of time, like at least 8 years. They were sick of me. I mean, they were so over me. 'Cause like I said before, I've been arrested a few times. I've had 3 DUIs, 2 assault and batteries, drug sales, transportation, just everything. I was just living a horrible life, making horrible decisions.
What's your family, just real quick, like doing at this point? Have they kind of cut you off or what?
Oh, Okay. At this point, I mean, my poor sister, She was always there for me. I mean, she seriously is the best. She
Aw.
just, I mean, it was very hard. She would get so irritated, but I could always call her. She was always there for me. But she was, I mean, so frustrated. I remember there was one situation where I was coming back from Huntington and I lost my keys. And so I like got a ride back to the house by like an Uber or something, and I broke the window with my arm. And so I was like, I mean, I have crazy marks all the way up my arms. And just not thinking, like, of course the glass is gonna fall, you know. So I'm sitting there elevating my arm, blood everywhere, right? And because I'm thinking, oh, my ex is gonna take me to court for this. He's gonna, you know, whatever. So at that time, I'm like, nope, he's not gonna win there. You know,
He's
I'm
not gonna
fine.
get it.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, my sister pulls up with her husband. Like, she was looking for me all night. Like, obviously she was pregnant with her first son. She's so angry, but like still wanting to make sure I'm okay. So they end up taking me to the doctors because I was literally just like blood everywhere, really bad. But that's my sister. You know, she didn't agree, obviously. But she, you know, was always there even when I called her from jail. And my parents were too, but I feel like because of stuff my mom went through as a child, as far as her being able to communicate with her parents, I think that a lot of times she didn't know how to like handle things. But like my mom is like my best friend, you know, I love her. I can talk to her about anything now. So, you know, I felt like I always had that with my sister though,
Yeah.
you know.
So you went to jail that
Oh
last
yeah.
time.
So I went to jail this last time and I was looking at a lot of time, and and then there was a few people that I knew previously from when I was in custody that were in, you know, drug court. So,
And had you done drug court before?
no, I mean, I tried to do DUI court, but like when I first went to the first testing or whatever, I like took one of those drinks to like clear your pee, and I like threw up all over the toilet, and then I got arrested.
Oh no.
Like 2 days later for drug sales. So it was like,
Yeah, it wasn't gonna work.
no. But at this point, like, I really did lose my mind, but there was such a part of me, I didn't know the step to take to get sober. Like, cause I already had that CPS case open, obviously, cause I lost, you know, custody of my daughter and everything like that. So that was already open, and they were like wanting me to test and all this stuff in order to get, you know, to see London. And so I was like really trying to get sober, but I didn't know how. And so it would like last a few days and then I would like fall again, but I like wanted it so bad. So I feel like this was such a God thing that I got caught when I did, and that I, one, didn't do something much worse. You know what I mean? And two, that it kind of just stopped everything, at least for me. And so I could look at, you know, I need to get clean. I need to figure this out. But even when I was in custody, like I was very hopeless at times. Like there was part of me, my self-worth was so low that I was like, is my daughter better off without me? You know, and I struggled with that. And I will never forget like Deputy Cisneros, because he was actually the bailiff in, you know, Judge Anderson's courtroom. And he was at the jail, and he would always like be like, you got to do this. You got to try to do this. And then there was, like I said before, there was a few girls that were in drug court that I knew from like previously from when we were like in and out. You know, you kind of end up knowing people when you guys are doing the same thing over and over again. And so my friend Danielle actually stood up in court, because that's when they're like, well, you can go watch the court and see if they will even like let you in, you know? So Lori Dyer was the probation officer, and she did not want me in drug court. Because I had like sales and I had violent stuff, and typically then they didn't allow any of that because they don't want you to like give the drug addicts selling. Yeah. But then I forgot, I think it was like Prop 47 or something changed. So they started accepting like other people with crimes that they felt they were serious. But yeah, one of my friends stood up and was like, please try to give her a chance. She's serious, you know? And so I started going to the court. I think it was like every week for like 6 months. And I just was trying to prove to them that I wanted it. And so then I finally did get accepted, but I had to do a year in jail no matter what. And then I obviously had time over my head if I didn't complete it. And it was like 8 years. So, cause they were just done. I was like, you know, but at this point it was like, I wanted it. Like I was willing to do whatever I had to do. And I mean, that was a process within itself because like I said before, Lori wasn't a huge fan of mine. So it was a lot of, you know, we were at it quite a bit in the beginning. And I just kept like in the beginning, I would go on hikes almost every day. I mean, we had so many classes and stuff that we had to go through, but I had nothing. I mean, I lost everything. I lost my license. I had all those DUI classes I had to do. I didn't have money. My parents did not enable me in that way at all. Like they did not support my addiction. They obviously at this point were so excited, wanted me to do well, but they weren't handing me money. Like here, you know, you need to figure this out. You need to build your life back up. And that's why at this point, like no one could take that from me because I would have to get rides. I didn't have a car. Like I had to ride the bus. I mean, just everything you can think of. I had to get everything back myself.
Yeah.
And so, and I did it, and I did it one step at a time, literally sometimes 1 minute. Like it was so overwhelming at first. And I would write a list, like, what do I need to get done today? You know, and then you got to find a job. I mean, you know, the process of everything. And then start doing payment plans. And I had like restitution. I mean, I had so much stuff.
It's just so remarkable that you're able to do that. And it's so good for people to hear this because we've both worked in treatment, right? And there's so many times where clients are like, I'm not going to get on the bus.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm not going to do that. And it's like, that's what it takes. Like, you have to be willing to do whatever and to humble yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you're used to like making money, you know, one way or another. And now all of a sudden you don't have that and you're like riding a bus.
Yeah. No, there was times where I like would laugh at myself because I'm like, here I am in Santa Ana, but like just like on a bus, you know? So it was, it was humbling for sure.
Yeah.
But all I knew was I want it. There's nothing that anyone can do that's going to get me to relapse. I mean, I wasn't perfect at first. Like I had to deal with like, you know, being home at a certain time and things like that. In the beginning, I had to kind of like learn how to follow rules, but I was not going to relapse. You know what I mean? So there definitely were all those character defects that I had to like pride, ego, just,
How did you work through those things? Did you work a program?
Yeah. So in drug court, I mean, I had a therapist too, and she helped me so much with like the custody, because I also had my custody court and everything going on.
A lot going on.
Yeah. And so that was another thing too, was just having to face what I put my daughter through. And that was very, very hard. I had to have a social worker follow me and be with me. Like, so it started like 2 hours, and my daughter didn't really want to be with me at first. You know, it was just a very unknown situation, or even the times, I mean, going back to when I was in custody, when she would come with the social worker, I mean, that literally killed me. And that's when I would be struggling with like the mind, like the thoughts of, am I worthy of being her mother? Like, look at what I'm putting her through. And that was so hard. And I just kept pushing through that. Like, I don't have to do this again. Like, she's still young, you know, like that was the stuff, but it wasn't always easy. Like, I'm not going to say that I was just like,
no, I went through the same situation. He wasn't fully taken away from me, but I had to go through like 2.5 years of fighting my ex-husband to get him back because he was just with him. But yeah, there's those moments and like people need to hear this because so many times people give up and they relapse over these sorts of things and they just like give up and they're like, okay, I'm not going to do this. You know, when I first started seeing my son again after not seeing him for so long, he was like 7, 8 years old and, he hated me.
Yeah.
Like he didn't want to be around me. And even though all before that, like we were inseparable, like I was like, he was a mama's boy.
Yeah.
And it was so hard dealing with that because it's one thing to like lose your child. And then when you're trying to get them back and you're working on yourself and you're doing all this hard work, but they don't know that. They're too young to understand that. I mean, even our friends and family can't understand that. Like we're like thinking like, we're better.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, all we know is what we've known.
Yeah.
You know, and seen. And it's just, I always preach, like, as long as we can keep being consistent and showing them every day what we're doing and show up, like, love always wins in the end. You just have to like stick with it. And mine was so bleak for so long where I was thinking kind of the same thing. Like, should I just let him come back to me when he wants to?
Yeah.
But I was like, no, fuck this. And just kept fighting. So yeah.
No, that was, I went through the exact same thing. And so that was a mental, you know, I had to retrain my thinking process and it wasn't always easy, but I just kept saying like, she never has to go through this again. I need to do what I have to do and clean up my side of the street. And I even had to do that same thinking with my ex and her dad, because it was like he did the same things as me, but for some reason with a lot of things he got away with it.
Yeah.
And so at the time I would be like, you know, well, it's like why isn't he? But it's like, no, I still did this. I need to clean up my stuff. I need to, you know, change me for my daughter and not worry about that. In drug court, obviously I had the open CPS case. So the social worker would come, you know, check my house. My visitation started for like 2 hours a day. We would go to a park. She would follow me. And then, you know, it went from like 4, 8 hours. Then it was like overnight. And I just kept, you know, doing it until and I had like a drug patch on. Plus I would test 3 days a week. Plus I had my, you know, probation officer who would come in the house all the time. And
they'd actually come. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, now
you're doing it.
Oh yeah. So they would come in undercover cars and like work cars and just ruin my room. I mean, and she had a thing for me.
It probably didn't help that you're really pretty. Like, I feel like they like pick on girls like that, where they're like, oh, you think you're just going to get away with all this. Yeah.
And so she would come like every 2 weeks and ruin my room, come in hot, like crazy, you know? And so, and then, later.
You poor thing.
Yeah,
like,
it was a lot. And I remember even my daughter being there a few times and I was just like, and they were respectful of that when she was, but I would be like, well, you know, they're just making sure the neighborhood's safe. Like it was just like, but, so, you know, eventually then, you know, I got joint custody back.
Amazing. And how long was that whole process until you got joint custody?
Like 2 years or something, you know, and I actually graduated drug court on her birthday.
Wow.
So that was
how
kind of cool.
Was that?
Yeah. So I was in drug court for 2 years.
What do you tell moms out there that are going through this right now with their children?
With custody or drug court?
With custody, you know.
You just got to keep going forward. I mean, it's not easy in the beginning. It's emotionally very hard to see what you've put your kid through, but like I told myself, you never have to do that again. You just got to push through, do what is asked of you, clean up your side of the street, don't look at anyone else, and just have the focus of your kid and you guys as a unit. And that's just, I mean, that's what I would tell anyone.
Yeah. And not overthink it. You know, like what you're saying, it's like these simple acts that seem very hard, I know, but it's simple acts that you just have to do every day.
Yes.
Consistently.
And your children do end up seeing that. It might take time. It wasn't easy seeing my daughter like not coming to hug me, and she was just very like unsure. And especially if there's someone in their ear, which never helps that either. But even with that stuff that was going on with me, it was like, I'm going to show her with my action and being consistent and being there and showing her love and showing her a sober mother. And now she's never seen anything. She doesn't remember any of that. So she's only seen a sober mom and someone that's there for her and consistent, and she can rely on me. Yeah. And that is one of the greatest blessings, you know?
Like with my son, I never thought that it would get this good with him. Like he's 15 now. He lives with me full time and we're best friends. Yeah. You know, and I never thought like, okay, it'll get better, but it's never going to be like how it was, you know? And it's better because I'm sober and we've now like gone through these things together and built this life. So It's always possible.
Yeah. And I feel like too, they're able to talk to you about so much
Oh
more.
yeah. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I don't need to know
Yeah,
that. But
exactly.
yeah, he tells me everything.
Yeah. And so that's awesome. But so also while I was in drug court was when I met my husband too. And he was actually struggling with addiction as well, but he wanted sobriety. So that was like another whole thing because he was, involved in some criminal stuff as well. And I think in the beginning of my recovery, like I was still drawn to that high, but I knew I was never going to get high, like drawn to that like lifestyle, but I was still learning like my self-worth and what my life was and letting go of like another life that I had, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And so I didn't really know where that was going to go. I just know we were so like bonded because like the first year I was like, I'm not going to date anyone. I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on myself. And that was it. So this was like a little bit after my first year. And so I actually met him like previously in my addiction. So it was more like he was writing me as a friend. Couldn't believe at first that I was sober. He's like, there's no way this chick actually is sober now, because he saw me back then. But then he was like, oh, shoot, she is. Like, that's, And so he wrote me on Facebook and was, like, he's like, oh, like, I'm sober now. And he was at the time, but he was definitely struggling. So it got to the point where I was like, well, if you don't figure this out, then I can't be around you and I won't let my daughter be around you, And so he made the choice to go get clean, and he's been clean since.
Wow,
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
oh, it's like a little fairy tale story.
Yeah, and so he did the work, and then we continue to do the work together, and build in our sobriety, and we just love being able to work with other addicts and try to help them see hope because we have a lot of similarities, but like some differences too, so.
Yeah, I love your story. You have a beautiful family.
Thank you.
So when did you start working in treatment? Like, did you have to do a lot of work before that? Or like for me, I started doing it, which probably was way too soon for me. But like I went to treatment and like went right back to school and started as an intern. And I hadn't like really done any work on myself. So
Yeah.
When did you start working in treatment? And for you, is that like your purpose and your passion?
So I started in drug court. I worked at Milestone. And so I was working there. I just knew that that was a passion because I always kind of had that even like in and out of my addiction. Like I always just wanted to like towards the end because I knew I would struggle. And then when I would get better, like I just always wanted to help people in that sense. And so when I did get sober and because things were so dark and so hopeless at one point, and I was able to get past that, I just knew that I wanted to give my experience to other people. And that's why when I've said, in the past, like I want to sit with people that are struggling so hard, lost everything, and just feel like my life is done. And it's not because I want people to be in that state, but just because I can relate so much and I want them to see like, this is who I was. This is who I am now. Yeah. And there is a way out and you can do it and you are worth it and just like love on them and show them that. And so I have that so deep in my heart, so I did start, I started in treatment when I was in drug court and then I ended up getting pregnant with Dakota. And so my focus kind of became on that because, it can get emotionally overwhelming sometimes. And then when you're growing a human, it just was like a lot. So I stopped. And then after Dakota, I started working at Be Well in Orange. And then I got pregnant with Jaden.
You've been a busy mom.
Yeah. So, and then I stopped working there, cause I worked in like the co-occurring area. There was a lot of mental illness, which like I said, I love that, but it just seemed, for me at the time, it was emotionally overwhelming while being pregnant. I didn't feel like it was safe. So, I put that on hold then. And so now here I am, right? So Jaden's like a year and a half, a little over, and I have that fire again. I feel like, I'm ready to kind of give back in that community. And it's something that it really just means so much to me. So
yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah.
It's like I had to turn everything negative that had happened to me and all these things into a positive and like help others.
Yeah.
It was like I had this aha moment where people are like, oh, how did you figure out you wanted to do it? And it's like I was sitting in treatment and it's like God just put it on my heart.
Yeah.
Like this is what you need to do, you know? And I've like never looked back. But you're right. I mean, for you were pregnant, so there was a lot going on, and so you had to remove for a bit. But even for me, I wasn't pregnant, but the emotional part of it, it can be so hard, and the burnout rate is so high, like working in treatment, that you truly have to like find your balance, you know, in that space. Cause it's a lot to take on. Yeah. But then you have a clothing line, right? Called Reborn Apparel.
Yes. Reborn Apparel.
I love that. How did that come to be?
So me and a few of my friends, my friend Jennifer and Lynn, it was probably like 5 years ago. We started doing these journals where we would write like little hopeful notes in them, and we would bring them to recovery centers. So it had like the serenity prayer on top. And then we would write something like to whoever this is, like, and just something giving them hope, you know? And so when we were doing that, we were like, this serenity prayer looks sick. Like this would be cool on the back of a hoodie. So we originally were doing that together. And then, you know, they had some stuff going on in their life. So, and I wanted to continue doing this. And they're still such a huge part of my life and recovery and talking. And I actually used to do some podcast type stuff with my girlfriend Jennifer too, which we're going to start doing again, which I'm excited about.
You have to keep me updated on that.
I will. So that was where it started, was the Serenity hoodie. And then I kind of took it off from there, you know, cause they just had other stuff. And, so my husband and I, we just try to come up with designs that means something to us in recovery.
I love it. Yeah. I want like more people to do this because I am so excited about this like Recover Out Loud community, because for so long it's been like this taboo and people don't talk about it, you know, open and publicly, and like to each their own. You know, people don't want to, that's fine, but I just love this movement where it's like showing people that like recovery is cool, you know, we can have fun, you know, it's this new way of life. And because so many people, they're like, oh man, like for me, I was like, I'm gonna get sober and like my life is gonna be horrible, my life as I know it's over, what am I gonna do? And so to like see this and have people being able to see it at a young age now and be like, wow, this is actually like cool to get sober and be able to like wear a beanie or I have so much recovery apparel. I'm really excited to wear yours because it's just rad, you know, like whatever it is, I just love just wearing it on my sleeve. Like I'm sober and come talk to me, you know,
100%. And so many people have stopped me when I am wearing it. And I love that, you know, because it kind of opens the door to conversation or if they're struggling with something or know someone. And, you know, even my daughter, she loves wearing this stuff too. So
that's cool. Actually, my son does too. He's funny. He'll wear it all. So what does the future look like for you now, for you, your husband, your family?
I mean, our goal, like this year, we wanted to, he just recently started sharing more about his recovery. He's always like been grateful, you know, for his recovery and what he has, but he kind of just was private about a lot more. And so just this last year, he started sharing more and being more raw because he wants to, you know, like reach out and give hope to others as well. Like I've kind of always shared along the way. So that was kind of really cool because it did reach a lot of men too. And, you know, not that mine doesn't, but you know, when another man does it, it just, and so we just want to start, you know, giving back more. And like I was talking to you the other day, like being more active with it, like on the street with helping, especially with this like fentanyl crisis and stuff like that. And not just saying things, but actually doing something about it. And so that's kind of where I'm at. And then just going, you know, putting more effort into this clothing line because I feel like I have a little more time now. My kids are, I mean, they're still young, but they're older. It's not like, so
I love all of that. Well, anything you need support with, I'm totally here to help. Your husband should come on the podcast if he wants to share. That would be amazing.
Yeah, he would love to.
I love when men share because it's just, I mean, it is what it is. That is harder, you know, for men to be vulnerable and show those feelings. And I think it's so important because they all go through it just like we do. And so to have to hold that in. So I love it when they share.
Me too.
What would you tell a woman out there right now that's struggling, that's listening to you?
I would say reach out. You know, that's like one of the number one things is don't keep it in, reach out, ask for help, whether it's me, whether it's you. There is a way, there's a better life. You're worth it. We're all here to support. And whether it's going to treatment, going to detox, or just, you know, habit correction, guidance in some way, whatever that is, I always just want people to reach out and just know that we can figure it out. We can figure out a plan.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's setting you up somewhere to get that help that you need. Or a court case or whatever. Like, you know, I have experience in most of the areas, you know.
So if someone wants to reach out to you directly or look at your clothing line, where can they find you?
On Instagram, Mrs. Shay. It's MRS_Shay, and then Reborn Apparel LLC.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Of course.
You're amazing.
Thank you.
I absolutely love your story and just everything you've overcome. I just love like seeing the before and after, you know, in that light, like hearing it, because people need to hear that whether they're in recovery or not because of the stigmas that surround it. You know, there is hope. Nobody is completely hopeless.
Yeah.
We need to keep like planting those seeds and having a voice. So thank you for having a voice.
Of course. Thank you.
All right, you guys, we'll see you next time. Bye.
Right.